Welcome to This Week in Black Media, March 27th, 2019. I'm going to start this week with a video many of you, I'm sure you've seen in one capacity or the other. This comes from a Show Media Network, and it shows Austin Schofield, this bearded man here, beating this woman on the left after he had confronted her for parking on the wrong way on the street, I believe. Pulled a gun on her, smacked her phone out of her hand when she tried to call the police. She hit him back, and then he proceeded to hit her like a man would hit another man 4 or 5 times, picking his shots, deliberately picking his shots, very calculated with that. And he only got a misdemeanor. That's kind of the point today, but there's a community outcry, rightfully so. And the video I saw, another video I saw, the district attorney, I believe it was, says that they can go harder with the charges, but he hasn't gotten the report yet. So I suspect because of the community pressure that he's going to be charged with a felony, and I hope he gets jail time, and I hope he has to sit in the dorms, Gen Pop, so to speak. And we'll see what happens there when he's around some real wolves. You see what I mean? So the point that I'm going here, we're gonna draw a parallel here to what's going on in politics, but it's the community outrage that and this instantaneous communication that we saw with Advice Show. Well, over 1 million subscribers. We have to figure that the majority of them are African American. What do we have? 13 million supposedly African Americans here, so that's a significant portion of our population. Then on top of it, you look at how Advice Show influences other black media producers. I mean, this channel here is an example of that. So it's reaching more people, and to an extent that the impact is being felt not just by Advice Show, all the channels that I list on Ancestral Productions channel. It shows that the consequences of that is it's reached the highest layers of our society. So, and that's why I wanted to use that to go here into another Advice Show video that shows Joe Biden, why he doesn't deserve the black vote, which I absolutely agree. And the video is shown here of him in his younger days advocating for the crime bill, the racist crime bill that Bill Clinton took to its highest degree of misfortune for the black community. But it was basically the equivalent of calling, without pointing them out specifically, but just the whole super predator argument. When we have to look at the real super predators that create the conditions for people to act like quote unquote super predators. You see, it's by design. So this brings us to Boyce Watkins. We're talking about politicians paying consequences for their behaviors from what was formerly considered the bottom strata of society with the black community. And Bernie went to speak at a black church, and there was very little black turnout. And what the presumption is this could be because of Bernie's denial of reparations, or saying that blacks don't deserve reparations. I certainly hope that's the case, because it shows, just like Biden, it's going to cost Biden votes. I think it could possibly cost him the election if we show the solidarity that it seems, the momentum that we have right there, that he'll be dead in the water for the racism he's shown, unless he does a complete turnaround about reparations, because he was against reparations too. There's videos out there of that too, completely against it, where he shouldn't be held accountable. You've benefited from it. See, the data there is, you can't argue the data. So Bernie had a low turnout of black people, and he shouldn't have that. What he said about reparations, that it wasn't feasible, while being a hypocrite and advocating for reparations for his own people, it makes him a bigot. As far as I'm concerned, it makes him racist. It was a racist thing to do. This brings us to another political candidate who's going to be dead in the water, Amy Klobuchar, who, speaking of reparations, said it doesn't have to be cash payouts. So here again we have the same fake liberalism that beneath it is reeking of paternalistic arrogance and telling black people what's best for them, and that cash payouts aren't what should be done, that institutions should be made. Here's why I'm against institutions for reparations as being the only means, and I'm sure Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore are going to deal with that. Institutions can be good, depending on how they erect them. I think, yes, we need to build our own institutions, but no, there needs to be some compensation for basic standards, for basic human living, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So one's home, one's property is taken care of, that one's bills are taken care of, that we can live and subsist at a basic level of existence. Before you start building anything, you build institutions first. All you're going to have is the same system reinforcing Negroes that have kept things the way they have been until now, coming in and leading the institutions, being the puppets or the Trojan horse for the liberal, the fake liberal powers that be. You see, it's just a repeat if it's institutions first. Institutions don't work because they've already mastered that. We can't get honest people in there. By the time they've been socialized through the university system, most of them have sold out. You see, no, we need to do, the reparations needs to be where a person's basic needs are met, and that they don't have to worry about that again. You see, once you have that peace, then you can start thinking about institutions. So the point here is that she doesn't deserve the presidency anyways, because she's mean. She's a mean person. She's been very abusive to her staff, and with someone like that, she's dead in the water anyways. But she's certainly not going to get the black vote. So this whole reparations, no, we need institutions. You're just going to put the same boule in there. We're done with you. That's not an idle threat. It's already happening. So we don't need to repeat that sequence. No more system reinforcing Negroes. And if so, let them be monitored by the real leaders in our community, and they've already shown themselves who they are. Because I suspect there'll be more quote-unquote attempted leaders in the black community because they see it as a way to fill their pockets. That's just human nature. So that's why it's important to establish who has a record of doing this for the longest. Who's been sincere with it. Who's kept it 100, so to speak. So this resistance, or these protests from the bottom, the used to be bottom, exerting power by having enough influence to make the social powers that be move. You see, they didn't want to talk about this 20 years ago. They don't have a choice now. And I'm saying it goes all the way up to the highest powers in America, and that is shown right here more than any place else. This is a big deal here. AIPAC shunned as Trump embraces Netanyahu. So you have top Democratic candidates didn't show up to AIPAC. Why? It's because of this new media. Not just the black media. You have a lot of new European media that's showing precisely just how racist the Zionist state is, and precisely how much influence AIPAC has, and in them trying to take our rights away. You see, we have access to these websites now. You see, we're seeing where their funding comes from. We're seeing what their agenda is. Literally, they're advocating that a company in America would not be eligible for contracts if they boycott Israel, which is a fundamental human right, according to our Constitution. Let's see, we should be outraged that they would even dare try to do that, and do it with a smiling face. I mean, they're so arrogant. It's we look at the history, of course. I guess it makes sense that they're that arrogant. But they even want their own bill for racism and anti-Semitism, a special kind of racism that they suffer because they think they're a special kind of people. They're not even who they say they are, totally. Black folk got as much argument to that as anybody else. I'm going to show that. So when they're held accountable like that, this was unthinkable before. You see, but these politicians are worried about their futures. And it shows that they know the history too. That you can't argue the data that's there. You can't argue the horrendous things that they do in Palestine. And you can't listen to Fox News or CNN when they talk about it, because it's biased. And what they're going to find out, you look at their ratings or whatnot, they're not going to matter to us soon anyways. We'll have our own alternate universe going on here. That's what should scare them most of all. Those of you that have watched the videos here before, I talked about that before. My experience of experiencing that, to walk into a completely different world right within our own country by walking into those Mexican restaurants, to see a culture fully intact and operating according to itself, according to what it's always done. And you could see how someone immersed in that 16 hours of their day doesn't care what they have to do for 8 hours a day. Because it makes it abundantly clear that that's the fake world. That it's a world largely run by wicked beings. And you see, that's some of the brilliance that you have in the Quran. Brilliance. The prayers every day. The multiple prayers every day. It takes you outside of that system to look at the bigger picture. What's important, to reconnect with that before you go into the cesspool that is American society. I've witnessed that with my own two eyes. Now, I've argued before, no one organizes like black people. It's embedded in us, and all you have to do is look at the fractal cultures to know that. You have to have your basic hierarchy of needs met to activate that again, and it is just a matter of time. So this newfound accountability, who's next on deck? Well, all we got to do is look at Antonio Moore for that. Why are celebrities silent on black reparations? Oh, that's a kind of a trick question, because what he's saying there is they're not going to be allowed to be silent on reparations anymore. To quote Antonio Moore, "We coming." And he's got some nice screenshots there showing them their pictures. They're going to be held accountable by us, the new black media, for being turncoats, for not doing anything for us. It's a very natural thing for any successful community. It's a very African thing, to know that you are accountable to your people. Our black celebrity, they have been puppets, very often for our Jewish cousins' interests. I'm talking about our European Jewish cousins that carry our DNA, that goes all the way back to before biblical times, would be my argument. What does that mean? Do the math. We have as much right to that story about Israel as they do. See, they've been all puffed up. They didn't think that the other priesthoods would reemerge again. Oh man, how ironic. So there's going to be pressure on celebrity now, and you might think they don't care, but I can imagine getting called coon enough and sellout enough when you look at the data and you know that there's some truth to it. Oh, that's some pressure. Look how quick these self-serving politicians folded once they started to feel just a little bit of it. So things are changing. That brings us to this video here from Netanyahu. Is Benjamin Netanyahu a racist Jewish supremacist? You better believe he is. Look at what Normal Finkelstein said there. I ran a bit of that clip on there. You got to look at what he does, what he says, what they do to the Palestinians, how they treat the Ethiopians there, what he has said himself, that Israel is only for, it's not for anybody that isn't Jewish. And then on top of that, they're going to be the ones who designate what Jewish is. See, they don't get to do that anymore. Not globally. You see, we've been put in this bubble where we think that Israel is beyond critique. But you have to look at the international community. I'm telling you, that's how we have to look at this reparations movement too. We have to look at the international community. Say the reparations movement works here. We are part of an international community, and there will be connections remade again that we have always had. Many of them with brown people. Can't deny the history. Look at Nelson Mandela and Castro. That was real. It was authentic. So, yes, he's a racist, and they're murderers, mass murderers, and they've normalized it. How do we know that? All we have to do is look at this video here. This is from The Last American Vagabond. It shows Israeli soldiers shoot a little Palestinian boy, but they didn't just shoot him. They laughed and cheered after they did it. He was unarmed. You got them laughing, murdering children over there. And you have all these politicians sitting there bootlicking AIPAC and the Zionist lobby. Now, that's why Cory Booker disgusts me. Talking all this love and unity while he supports bills that support Israel. I've said it before, but I really don't. I don't think anything quite irritates me as much as selective humanitarianism. It's disgusting. So don't talk all your peace and love when you have no compassion for those people over there. Don't. You don't have a right. You don't have a right to try to run that game. So, we talk about the racism. Is it pervasive over there? Yes, it's pervasive. I'm going somewhere. If you've watched the channel here enough, you know where I'm going just by looking at the screenshot of the videos here. They've normalized it. To what extent? This video here shows from Democracy Now! That one of the Israeli politicians shows a video of supposed to be a comic video of him shooting a Palestinian politician. And it's just acceptable to them. You see? So, some might ask, well, what does that have to do with black media and the reparations movement? I say everything. I said last week, I'll continue to say it. I recognize patterns. If you don't, that's your problem. Our wise watchers here recognize it, though. And I haven't even showed all the patterns. Oh, you won't believe the patterns. They go deep. They go all the way up. So, right here, it's because Trump and Netanyahu are two narcissists of the same genocidal order. The same things being run here in America. The same walls. The same disdain for the perceived other. With Trump talking about the immigrants. Did you see when they were tear gassing them and everything? Just at some point, I'll do side-by-side video of that. The way the people at the American border were gassed. And then we can look at what happens over there in Palestine, which is far worse. Far more murderous. For now. Let's see. We accept that over there. We're going to try to move that window over here. They're bad people. The international community knows it. What they do is atrocious. And to have a president that supports it, that's atrocious too. And every president we've had prior has done that. We need someone that's going to say no. I mean, we deserve reparations, don't we? Well, let's stop giving $3 billion a year to Israel and give it to the victims of the slave trade that their ancestors benefited from. Let's bring that support back home. So, yeah, the veil is being lifted. And wait until the European people find out en masse exactly what the Zionists think of Jesus. Exactly what their rabbis from the Babylonian Talmud had to say about Jesus. Exactly how they've had fun poked at them in the media by Jewish media producers. Everywhere from Seinfeld to the Larry David Show to Orange is the New Black. Mocking us. Thinking we weren't smart enough to see it. Oh, I see it. I see more than your rabbis do, I suspect. We're going to find out, though. The card's going to come out. So, interesting times. Interesting times. And we'll go into more next week. So, these are things to think about. Look at the patterns. Wise viewers, look at the patterns. There's going to be more to emerge. So, until next week, as always, continue to watch and support Black media.